Alright, so... third party is very likely involved. Here's the autopsy report. What? Don't you need to ship dead bodies over to a coroner before you can get an autopsy? Don't you need to have an autopsy before you can have an autopsy report? It is probable that Mr. Rell survived for a short time after he was shot. However, Mr. Faraday died instantaneously from a stabbing. Interesting. I find it interesting that Rell was able to survive being shot for longer than Faraday could be while being stabbed. Looks like we now know everything we need to know about this case. Are you sure we know everything? Of course! The incident began with Mr. Faraday attempting to get his revenge. The prosecutor went into a rage from being accused and tried to kill the defendant. But the defendant fought back and they ended up killing each other. Bow. It's all very clear and simple. There's absolutely no margin for doubt except for all of the things you figured out. Do you really believe that to be the truth? Are you saying that just because I figured out the truth before you, that you don't want to believe it's true? No! I think you're full of beans, young girl. It's alright. If you disagree with my argument, then prove me wrong. Well, if there are any contradictions to be found, that is. Don't worry, I will. Because that's obviously not what happened. Mr. Faraday's death was instantaneous, while Mr. Rell survived for a short time. From this, it is obvious that Mr. Faraday died after he shot Mr. Rell. And Mr. Rell, while on the brink of death, stole Mr. Faraday's knife and stabbed him. Those are the facts of this case. Mr. Faraday's death was instantaneous, therefore he must have attacked first. Proving that logic to be false is probably the fastest way to show her that she's wrong. Oh, instead of the body position? Okay. In that case, I should first look for any holes in her theory. Okay, sure. If you want me to focus on that specifically, yes, that much appears to be true. For this, it is obvious that Mr. Faraday died after he shot Mr. Rell. Yes. I mean, as is, I suppose. And Mr. Rell, while on the brink of death, stole Mr. Faraday's knife and stabbed him. All right, hang on. So you believe that the dying Mr. Rell stole the knife from Mr. Faraday? Mr. Rell became desperate as he did not want to die. Human beings can do amazing things when they are put to the test. So the two men struggled. And in the end, Mr. Rell was able to grab the knife and stab Mr. Faraday. The messy condition of this room is a testament to their struggle. This room isn't messy, though. Yes, my logic is perfectly sound. Can you really say that it's perfect? What are you insinuating? Nothing, just that you're wrong. However, I can't let what you said slide by without further inquiry. One must be clear and precise. So if you could append that statement to your testimony. Fine. Yes, they struggled and Mr. Rell used the last of his strength to counterattack Mr. Faraday. That's the same thing. Those are the facts of this case. Wait, what? There's something strange about Francisca's theory. I should compare maybe that was new stuff. Hang on. I just know there's a contradiction in there. Hang on. Beep, boop. They struggled to counterattack. Right, well, let's see. What would be the thing that would tell me that there wasn't really... I guess it would be Gumshoe's thing. There was didn't hear a sign of a struggle. Yeah, there you go. If the two men were fighting, their struggle would have surely caused quite a bit of noise. However, Detective Gumshoe testified that he heard absolutely nothing. You place too much faith in that detective's testimony, you know. But for the sake of argument, let's say there wasn't a fight. How then did Mr. Rell get his hands on the knife? Mr. Faraday's bag was sitting right here in lobby number 2. And it's not hard to imagine that perhaps Mr. Rell saw a chance and took it out at some point. So, what you're saying is this. Mr. Rell took a chance when he saw the opportunity and took the knife from the bag. And then Mr. Faraday shot Mr. Rell after being stabbed? Isn't there something strange in Francisca's statement just now? Yes, indeedy, there sure do be. Wait, something doesn't add up. Oh, really? It's simply not possible for Mr. Faraday to have shot Mr. Rell after being stabbed. He died on impact. Hang on, what is... crime scene notes? Crime scene notes? Yeah, okay, that's what I need. I've got info for your face. According to the coroner's report, which I'm not sure how that happened, I'm gonna be honest with you. I feel like they need to actually take the bodies and check that stuff. According to the coroner's report, Mr. Faraday died instantaneously, meaning that he died immediately upon being stabbed by the kniff. Ergo, he could not possibly have fired the gun after that. Well, you got me. But of course. Well then, if the report is correct, then there's only one correct explanation. If we suppose that Mr. Rell attacked first, then Mr. Faraday, who died instantaneously, would have been unable to kill Mr. Rell. Therefore, Mr. Rell must have stabbed Mr. Faraday after he was shot. Then they both died. That is the only explanation that makes logical sense. Negating your opponent's ideas in order to prove your own theory. I see you've been studying, Francisca. I just wanted to explain it to you as simply as possible for your dumb brain, before you foolishly propose a foolish theory that only a foolish fool like you could. How naive of you to believe that only your opinions are valid, and still expect to discover the truth that the crime scene offers you. I think not. Francisca, you still got a ways to go. What are you talking about? Are you saying there's a flaw in my logic? Yeah, kinda. Mr. Faraday died instantly. And the fact that he did is what gives rise to the contradiction in this scene. The contradictory here is the crime scene is the order the bodies fell. Let me get this straight. What you're arguing is this. Mr. Faraday took the gun from his evidence bag and shot Mr. Rell. Then, the wounded Mr. Rell found an opportunity to take the knife and strike back. Upon being stabbed, Mr. Faraday died on the spot, and Mr. Rell died thereafter. If that's the case, then how do you explain this? Take a good look at the order in which their bodies are piled. No! Mr. Faraday's body is lying on top of Mr. Rell's. Therefore, Mr. Rell must have died before Mr. Faraday. Impossible! Yes, I agree that it seems strange no matter what angle you approach it from. Which means that the real mystery behind this crime scene that we must solve it. Okay. No, not so fast, Miles Edgeworth. What now? I simply think that you ought to think a bit more outside the box. Like that one show I see, yes. And that's even clearer now that the incident started with Mr. Faraday's murderous intent. She sure bounced back quickly. An explanation won't be enough this time. It's gonna take some very decisive evidence to prove her wrong. Okay. It was just chance that Mr. Faraday's body fell on top of Mr. Rell's. Ah, yes, coincidences. Those are always something to just assume. The two bodies fell into a pile, which indicates that they attacked each other at the same time. It really doesn't matter in the slightest that they fell in the opposite order. Uh-huh. I just know that Francisca's explanation isn't absolutely correct. All I have to do is find a hole in her logic. Once I do, I can then present her with the evidence that proves the contradiction. Alrighty, I might be able to make that happen. Sure. Okay, let's see. It was just chance. Yeah, really, just chance, huh? About that. Pressing someone's testimony in order to gain some time to think. You're a real one-trick pony, aren't you? It's too bad your trick only works on fools. That wasn't my intent. I simply wish for more details as to how Mr. Faraday ended up on top of Mr. Rell. Someone's impatient. I was just about to explain everything to you. So do you think you could hold on for a minute? Ow! Siska, I'll make you a deal. I'll hold on if you hold on to that whip of yours. Oh, I'll hold on to it, all right, as I whip you. Yeah, dagged. Now that you've quieted down a bit, I'd like to continue if you don't mind. Sheesh, this girl, I swear. Okay, yeah, they did fall into a pile, that much is true. Alright, let's press. What do you mean by they attacked each other at the same time? I assume Mr. Faraday had two different weapons in his hands. He made to attack Mr. Rell while holding both the knife and revolver. And then, after Mr. Faraday fired the gun, Mr. Rell grabbed the knife as he was falling and stabbed Mr. Faraday. This is how Mr. Rell was wound. This is how Mr. Rell wound up on the body. Why did I think that was wound? On the body with Mr. Faraday on top. At close range, that is more than possible. And yet it was definitely not at close range. Yes, it's possible, but if you have any other ideas, then show me what you've got. Oh, I will. I'm about to show you. And to that extent, I'd like you to append what you just said to your testimony. I don't see any point to that, but as you please. Alright, the fact indicates that they attacked each other at the same time from close range. Nope, gonna go ahead and say nah to that. Let's see, I think it's just the crime scene notes again. Objection. Yes, sir? No. Proto-smug. So you believe they killed each other at close range? Sorry, but that's impossible. Just as it was written in the crime scene notes. The firing of the handgun did not leave a gunpowder burn on Mr. Rell's clothes. Therefore, Mr. Rell and the gun must have been separated by a distance of at least 2 or 3 yards. Rock and rolled! Yes, this is by far the biggest contradiction. The two bodies are piled up on each other, yet the gun was fired from a distance. And with there being no chance that Mr. Rell moved that far after being shot, that leaves only one possible explanation. What a completely foolish line of foolishly thought from the thoroughly foolish fool! If I'm not right, then who was it that made the first move with the intent to kill, huh? Who? The person that attacked first with murderous intent? That would be, I'm gonna go with, neither of them! Here in this room, contradictions appear no matter which man we claim attacked first. Thus, there can only be one explanation. There was a third person here! Akabard! Who was the third person who killed Mr. Faraday and Mr. Rell, and set their bodies up to make it look like a double murder. That third person is the real culprit. Miles Edgeworth, there's just one thing you're missing. Evidence, correct? Exactly! Everything you said up until now is nothing but a story played out in your head. However, this is where the real test begins. Can you prove that there was a third person involved in this crime? Francisca is very flustered at the moment, as you can tell. Of course. If a third person was truly here, that fact would resolve the glaring contradiction. The proof that this has all been a setup made to look like they killed each other. I'll present it and lay bare the final piece of the puzzle that's not yet in place. What is the piece of evidence that proves there is a third person involved? I'm going to say the plastic bag. The gun in Mr. Faraday's hand and the plastic bag with his blood on it. These two items point to the presence of a third person. How so? Recall Detective Gumshoe's testimony. I was in the hallway the whole time, but I didn't hear a single peep of a struggle. If there wasn't a struggle in this room, then there shouldn't be any plastic bags on the ground. Meaning that someone else must have deliberately scattered them around. Gaggin! Do you not see the possibility in this? Disregarding the gun for the moment, there's a high probability of blood splatter when a knife is used on a person. If the culprit held the knife with a plastic bag around it, they could use the bag to catch any blood splatter from when they withdrew the knife. Then, by spreading a few more plastic bags around, or spreading them, mixing the bloody one in with them, and arranging the room to make it look like there was a struggle between the two without actually really trying, they could have at least knocked over a chair. They would be able to conceal their presence. Akbar! I dare say I have bested you. What are you writing down? Looks like we still got a long way to go in this investigation. Yes. Objection. Who the hell was that? Oh, Judge Legs, that's weird. What the heck's up with you, pal? Mr. Bad, I advise you to place Detective Gumshoe under arrest. What? What's the meaning of this? Looks like you're not man enough to discipline your own subordinates. Don't you dare. That detective claims he was there standing in front of the door the entire time. But I have it on good authority that it was all a giant lie. In what regard? Miss Yu, I ask that you please explain that last statement. I'll let His Honor explain it himself. I saw it with my own eyes, I tell you. During the recess, there was a period of time when there was no one in the hallway. What? See, Mr. Bad? So I ask you, why would a detective who was supposedly doing his job the whole time want to fabricate such a lie? Gumshoe, did you kill Faraday? No! Of course not, sir! It would appear that the one who set the whole crime scene up is that detective, which basically renders his testimony a complete lie and wholly invalid. It looks like your perfect logic has just come tumbling down, Miles. I was in the hallway the whole time, but I didn't hear a single peep of a struggle. That's the 4th time I've had to hear that. Was that statement really a lie? Detective Gumshoe, you're now a suspect in the murder of 2 men. Now spit out the truth or so help me. I haven't lied to anyone, sir, honest. I really was there. I was in the hallway the whole time. Detective Bad, I ask that you please do not act without my permission. After all, I am the one that is heading up the investigation, am I not? Don't talk like you know what's going on, boy. Ah, but I do. All I want is for the investigation to run perfectly. Perfection is the only wish of a disciple of Von Karma, after all. Therefore, before you take Detective Gumshoe into custody, I'd like to set the record straight on something. And what's that? What should I ask Detective Gumshoe about? Motive for the murders, why he wasn't in the hallway, state of the hallway. Okay, well, I'm gonna go with motive, because yeah, what on earth motive would he possibly have? I suppose the one thing I'd like clarified is Detective Gumshoe's motive for committing the crime. Motive, huh? Gumshoe, you got a grudge against Faraday or anything? No, sir, not me. Not a single bad thing against Mr. Faraday, sir. Is that a fact? Your voice doesn't sound anything like your head. I'm just throwing that out there. You really have a problem with lying, don't you, Detective Gumshoe? Telling you, I am not lying. The more unnatural you act, the more suspicious you become, you know. If you want a motive, Edgeworth, I have one for you right here. Would you please share it with us? However, be forewarned that I won't hesitate to object to flights of fancy. Because all I'm interested in is the perfect explanation. I am not going to enjoy talking to you. You're serious, aren't you? Fine. You amuse me, so I'll humor you with a little courtroom practice. If that's really necessary, all right, sure, why not? What's his motive? It was about a week ago. I saw the detective get chewed out by a livid Faraday in front of the precinct. He stood there super pale as Mr. Faraday yelled, "That's a salary cut for you, you nitwit." A brand new detective suddenly getting his salary cut. That's reason enough for a grudge. Well, how's that for the perfect explanation? Okay, you totally misunderstand me, pal. No matter how mad I get, I can never hold a grudge. Quiet. We can't trust anything you say. Sir. There's nothing wrong with the motive she proposed, per se, but there are some gaps in her logic that need to be filled in. Misused perfect explanation. May not be so perfect at all. Okay. How do I go about asking this? Okay, all of that is something. Maybe I need to press the very end of it. I'm trying to figure out, okay, so that's like, we're kind of ignoring a big, like, half of the entire situation here. Like, okay, sure, that's hypothetically a situation for why Gumshoe would want to kill Faraday, but what about Rell? What sense does that make? Why would he do it now? You call your explanation perfect. It's not to your liking? No, not especially. Unfortunately for you, it's just not up to my standards. Oh? Is there something you want me to clarify in that case? What should I do? Should I raise an objection? Yes, raise an objection. Alright, if you could clear this thing up for me. How Mr. Faraday was killed, we know that. Motive for killing Mr. Hey, there we go. I understand Detective Gumshoe's potential motive for killing Mr. Faraday. However, but what about his motive for killing Mr. Rell? His motive for killing Rell? Like I would know. Okay, then your explanation is literally worth absolutely nothing. If there was no clear motive for both of the murders, then I doubt this incident would have occurred. Wouldn't you agree? Is there anyone else you might have had a grudge against either of these two men? Or should we look into that ourselves? Oh, well in that case, I have absolutely no idea. What? But that's impossible. She must know something. Wait, okay, now she's laughing again. Can you please not glare at me like that? It makes me laugh. Yeah, so does literally anything and everything, it seems. Yeah, I didn't even do anything and you're already laughing away. Well, anyway, the way I see it, as long as he had a motive to kill one of the two, sure, why not? That's good enough. This crime would have played out the way it did anyway. Oh. Would you care to explain your logic? And this time, please try to provide a truly perfect explanation. Perfect this, perfect that. Stop being so uptight. Or is that a requisite trait for being a Von Karma? Now, Edgeworth, I demand that you shut this rude woman up. I wish you'd both be quiet for just 1 second. I guess I'll just have to explain it to you, kids. Motive to kill the men. There's no one out there with a motive to kill both Mr. Faraday and Mr. Rell. All you really have to establish is that someone had a grudge against one of the two men. Mr. Rell, who happened to be there, became a witness to Mr. Faraday's murder. Therefore, he was killed out of necessity and set up to look like they had killed each other. I wonder if that's really true. Is there no one out there with a grudge against both men? I might know? I should take another hard look at the evidence for this morning's case. Hang on, let me take another looky-loo at this. Let me see here. I'm not sure. I mean, maybe? That's the only piece of evidence I can really think of. The second KG-8 incident, as people are calling it, involving an embassy staff member, and the two men who both wound up as suspects in the case. Is there someone else I'm overlooking who is somehow related to them? In this particular instance, I think I do know what needs to be done, yes. And I say the hey, hey, ho, ho. The music has stopped, so I'm on the money. Monsieur, I believe there is someone you overlooked in making your statements. Or rather, is it because you'd rather not bring this person up? What do you mean? We are looking for someone with a reason to kill both Mr. Faraday and Mr. Rell. I can think of at least one person that fits the bill. He was the suspect in the original KG-8 incident, and a member of the Canopian embassy staff, Mr. Manny Coachen. That's right, the very man who came to visit you earlier out in the hallway. The man who killed a member of the Canopian embassy staff, Mr. Rell, and the man who was the lead prosecutor of the KG-8 incident, Mr. Faraday. Are you telling me that Mr. Coachen has no reason at all to kill both of these men? Well, I suppose he might have a reason or two. I also, again, really do need to just bring up the whole, victim CCU. I'm curious about that, and I feel like it has to play a role in something. You covered for me, pal. Dang, maybe I shouldn't be such a jerk. Maybe you're not such a bad guy after all. Don't get ahead of yourself. You're still a suspect. Make no mistake about it. The perfect evidence, the perfect testimony, is the only things I wish to hold. But I didn't do it. You will stay under my authority and go investigate Mr. Manny Coachen for me. And remember, I will not be very forgiving should any of this leak out. Oh, it's okay, I'm being yelled at. You want to investigate Coachen? You'd just be wasting your time. And why is that? Coachen was up in the viewing gallery watching the trial. Or so I was told. Every cop in this place has been keeping an eye on the guy since he arrived. Then the only real suspect we have is still Detective Gumshoe. I suppose so. No way. Come on, Detective Badge. You gotta believe me, sir. I really was in that hallway the whole time, sir. I never took a single step into this room, sir. Okay, then are you saying there was someone else who passed through the hallway? No, there was no one else, sir. Then why should I believe you didn't do it? That is one incredibly foolish detective. I mean, he's clearly lying about something, I just don't know the why. Standing right in front of a crime scene all by himself. It's as good as a confession of guilt. I have to admit, it's a bit strange. Most criminals will fabricate some sort of lie to escape their crimes. And if the detective really wanted to prove that he is innocent, you'd think he would at the very least offer up I spaced out while on duty or the like. Come on, Gumshoe. Time for your interrogation. Detective Bad. Wow, a rare double sigh. Miles Edgeworth, I'll go on ahead and report this to Papa. And that, as they say, is that. Oh, and that, and they say, is that. Right, everyone? Ho, ho, ho. They'd kind of like to talk to the judge. I suppose we should both be getting back to our real jobs now, huh? No. Before we do, Miss Yu, there's something I'd like to speak with you about. What is it? Stop laughing, for the love of God, that is actually incredibly obnoxious. So, what did you want to ask me about? I guess the KG-8 incident. The current case of the murdered Cadopian embassy staff member. I've heard that people have begun calling it the second KG-8 incident. Only among you law enforcement types. You're a defense attorney, are you not law enforcement in some category? I guess not, no. And what about it? I'd like for you to tell me everything you know about the original KG-8 incident. I'm afraid I can't help you. I don't know anything beyond what was reported in the papers. No, I believe you know much more, since you are directly tied to the KG-8 incident. I'd appreciate it if you'd stop with the false accusations. Baseless outbursts are useless both inside and outside the courtroom, don't you know? I do, but I also know that I do have a leg to stand on here, namely the ones that I'm using to stand up. Think you can stop making that ultra-serious face in front of me? If you could please stop laughing for just 1 second. I swear to God, you're gonna get judo throwed. I'm not gonna make any headway like this. I'm just gonna have to show her exactly how related to the KG-8 incident she is. All right, then I guess I'm finally able to bring this whole mess up. Gonna keep giggling about this mess? Miss Yu, I believe that I have proof of your connection to the KG-8 incident. That file is your proof? Well then, why don't you tell me exactly how I'm related to the KG-8 incident? Through the friggin' victim! Come on, are you dense? Your connection to the KG-8 incident is through the victim. The victim's name is CCU. You will note that she has the same last name as you. Can you really still tell me with a straight face that you're not related to this case? Okay. Sorry, but we're not related. What? Just kidding. You asked that question with such a serious look on your face that I couldn't help but... A relative of yours died. Miss Yu, I asked that you please tell me the truth. Alright, I'll tell you everything I know. Hey, you damn well better. Jeez. As you guessed, the one who reported the smuggling activities of the Amano group was my sister, CCU, as I thought. And she was killed right before she was to testify at the impending trial by Manny Coachen. But because he was tried once and was acquitted, he gets to live out the rest of his cushy life completely carefree. All because of a lack of evidence. No, I heard that the evidence to convict him did exist. What? I heard it from Mr. Faraday himself after Mr. Coachen's trial was over. Apparently a man in black made off with the most important piece of evidence. Then the evidence had been tampered with? Isn't it just like a criminal to do something like that? The smuggling ring being run out of the Amano group by one of its secretaries. They bailed Mr. Coachen out. Turns out they were in league with each other all along. How big was that smuggling ring? Was it a large operation? I don't really know. Which is why I wanted to become the lead defense on this case that people are calling the second KG-8 incident. But I haven't learned anything new at all. I was probably expecting too much, I know. You mean you think this case has something to do with the smuggling ring? I don't know what to think. Okay, well, that's a lie! Why did Mr. Coachen want to meet with you earlier? Actually, he came to watch the trial. Apparently he only found out that I was the defense lawyer on this case after he'd arrived. He figured he should say hi and one other thing. Looks like he couldn't resolve anything this time either. Too bad. What's that supposed to mean? Okay, why are you laughing? Oh boy, stop it with the scary face already. Nothing that's happened is funny. I'm fine, really. I gave him a good slap across the face. The way she talks about slapping him as she laughs away is kind of creepy. Yeah, I'm getting a real weird and messed up aura from this lady, I'm not gonna lie. But it's just as Mr. Bad said. He's not related to the double murder. I asked around and people in the gallery claim that he was in his seat the entire time. Talk about cruel fate. Well, this is about all I know. Sorry. Guess I wasn't much help, huh? That's not true. Sorry I made you recall such a painful time in your life that you apparently think is hysterical. Do you have a medical disorder, or what? Edgeworth, you really are too serious for your own good. I mean, it was just my sister being murdered. What's not funny about that? This is you're weird, lady. You really need to relax. You wouldn't want to die of stress, would we? Thank you for the advice, but there's no need to worry. I work in my own way, and I will catch this criminal in my own way as well. You'll see. Look at you with your game face on, ready to go. I'm making no such face. Did you know? Laughter is the best medicine, Edgeworth. Don't you get tired of making such a serious face all the time? I'm charged with making sure that all of the criminals of this world are found guilty. I have no need for laughter. There you go, making that face again. Oh well. I gotta get going. I still have a few loose ends I need to tie up. The KG-8 incident to this murder investigation. It's my belief that these two cases are related to each other somehow. Plus that detective, Detective Gumshoe. It's obvious he's lying, even though the lie is hurting his chances. Clearly this case is far from over. But whether or not that detective is the murderer can only be determined once I've completed my perfect investigation. Mr. Von Karma, I swear to uphold your honorable name, or my name isn't Miles Edgeworth. In just a short amount, I guess not a short amount of time, it's gonna take like 4 to 5 years for you to realize that that's not a thing, but hey, okay, sure. Sure, alright. Alrighty, sure. Oh boy. Whoest of boys. Oh. Did somebody break the drinking fountain over there? Sir, what is to become of the trial into the Cadopian Embassy staff member's murder? Indeed, since both the suspect and the prosecutor are now dead, the case will be dismissed. In other words, the trial ends here prematurely. Ha! Looks like you'll have to wait just a bit longer for your big debut. I suppose it can't be helped. The evidence for this trial will be transferred to you in a little while. Sir, what do you think about the murder of the Cadopian Embassy staff member and the murders of Mr. Faraday and Mr. Rell? An outrageous circus it has all become. That Faraday brought it all upon himself with his naivete. Yeah, I get it, you hate him, but you also seem to hate literally everybody, so that's not really much of anything. An outrageous circus. Right, sir. I grow weary of this topic. Edgeworth, I will have you assigned to a different case. Papa, you'll come and watch my courtroom debut next, won't you? I'll consider it. Really? You'll consider it? Dude. Sir, if I may, please allow me to continue with my investigation. Whatever for. I know that there is already a suspect in the murder of Mr. Faraday and Mr. Rell. However, there is not enough evidence to prove that it was he who committed the crime. And I'd like to continue investigating in order to find the perfect proof of his guilt. The perfect proof? Don't make me laugh. A worthless person like you has no right to claim such a thing as perfection. Real supportive guy, aren't you? Papa? Who do you think is the real culprit behind these murders? Miles and I, we're competing to see who can find the real killer first. Plus, being able to investigate the real crime scene is a really rare opportunity. It would give us some real-life experience, wouldn't you agree? If you want to investigate this case that much, then do as you wish. Then, you're allowing us to continue? Thank you, Francisca! In court, your top priority is to win, and a solid investigation is one of the keys to winning. We have to make sure you become recognized as a first-rate prosecutor, don't we? It wouldn't be very interesting otherwise. I'm returning home now. Edgeworth, Francisca, see to it I'm not disturbed save for the results of your competition. Yes, sir. Of course, Papa. Francisca, thank you. What are you thanking me for? Your logic earlier was built on that scruffy detective's lie. That means that the competition is still on. No, you definitely did that to be nice, even if you're trying to lie to everyone. Yes, just as you wished. I couldn't let you get off so easily. Now then, let's see how well you fared on this investigation from here, Miles Edgeworth. Are we a team now? Because that'd be the best. I know I don't have enough information yet. So my first order of business will be to question anyone involved with this case. She is! I'm pretty happy about that. Yes, what is it? It feels like there's a whole backside to this case we're not seeing. And here we had thought that it was a case where the two men had killed each other. We're lacking in information. And as upon karma, I can hardly call this a perfect investigation. Indeed, it is as you say. You agree? I can't believe we agree on something. Just what is so revolting about agreeing? Anyway, our first move should be to speak with everyone related to this case. Indeed, even if you had not said it, I was planning to do so anyway. Ow! What was that last for? You're a bully. You know what? You know what? You know what? You know what? I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it, but you know what? You forced my hand. Guess who's a prosecutor and you aren't? Do you think you can win this competition by simply showing that to me? Yes. In fact, I think it's checkmate. Not at all. In fact, I was planning to thank you. I wouldn't be a prosecutor today without you and your father. I didn't really do much. You became a prosecutor first, that's all. But just you wait and see, Miles Edgeworth. Very soon I'll be a prosecutor too. Good, then we can both send criminals away together as colleagues. But you can be sure that I will always get more convictions than you. It's almost cute that she's going this far to insist that she'll always win. Almost. Alright then. I've been meaning to look at this. It's an incredibly detailed model, isn't it? I heard that it costs as much to make that as it costs to build a courthouse itself. What's the point of making such an expensive model? I felt the exact same way upon hearing it. Ugh, it's so hard to understand such foolishness. Agreed. We're getting it along. I feel pretty good about that. Oh, dear Lord, I would like anything less than to speak to you. How about I talk to the guy messing with this instead? I'm much more interested in it. I can't stop the water, sir! Seems that man who was here earlier broke it by drinking from it too much. Bunch of fools who pretended to not see the foolish actions of a foolish fool who wants to get the drink of water. Well then, why don't you lend the officer a hand? As if I should have anything to do with this. Besides, that water-drinking fool's mouth is the thing that officer should be covering. Let's give that officer a description of the water guzzler later. Seems to have quite the grudge. Sounds to me like someone wanted a drink. Aww. Why is suddenly everything she does adorable to me? Man, this thing is incredibly detailed. Man, our modeling fanboy is impressed. I'm not exactly a fan of plastic models per se, but even I can sense the superb quality of this model. I simply cannot comprehend how that man can feel such love for such a trifle. I see. You're a disciple of my father, so you would do well to guard yourself against an interest in such unproductive things. Perhaps I should take up whipping people like the young lady over here. Ha Called out. What's the matter, officer? I've been standing here for forever, sir, and I really need to go to the bathroom. Why don't you just make a quick trip? Nearest one isn't that far, is it? No, it's a short way down the hall beyond those doors, but I don't want to be blamed for anything that might happen while I'm gone. So I'm gonna hold it. Perhaps Detective Gumshoe can be a positive influence on the force after all. Ooh, he's an example. That's not good. Sir, nothing to report, sir. Is there no one who will make this man take responsibility for his actions on the job? Is that the same guy? Looks like we have no choice but to report this to Papa. Then this guard can have fun in a waking nightmare after being awakened from his dream. Actually, let's not. I kind of feel sorry for him now. Alright then, let's investigate you. It wasn't me, I tell you. I didn't do anything wrong. Yes, I understand. Let's just calm down, okay, buddy? I doubt I'll get anything useful from the detective while he's this agitated. Oh, great. I have no choice but to talk to them instead. That sucks. This you? Oh, it's you, Edgeworth. And you. Are you? Wait. You were at the crime scene just now, weren't you? You should be disbarred for not knowing who I am. I am Franziska von Karma, and I'm about to become the successor to the family name. About to? I guess that means that just for now, you're still just another kid. In which case, it's only natural that I didn't know who you are. Why are you whipping me? Okay, at least that one's mildly funny. Anyway, looks like they're planning to hold the evidence a bit longer. If there's one thing I can't stand, it's waiting. I'm terribly sorry, but I have a few more questions to ask of you. And that's hilarious to me. Look at you. Eyebrows scrunched with lines on your forehead. It's almost like you're trying to solve a murder or something. That's silly to me. And that to ask of you. What exactly is so funny? Literally nothing, Edgeworth. Sorry. I'm just bad at dealing with a super serious atmosphere. Apparently, they failed to teach you proper behavior at a crime scene in law school. Whew. Feel much better now. So, what does he want to talk about? I'd like to inquire as to where you were at the time of the murder. We were in defendant lobby number 1 the whole time up until we heard the gunshot. And by we, I mean Mr. Bad. If you don't believe me, feel free to ask him yourself. You were with Detective Bad. Why? Yeah, a little something to discuss, that's all. Oh, yeah, is that all? Okay. So I take it that you're an acquaintance with Detective Bad. Yeah, he was a detective in charge of the KG8 incident. Detective Bad is also related to that incident? That's right. He was the one who was supposed to protect my sister Cece. But you know how that turned out, don't you, Edgeworth? Miles Edgeworth, I have no idea what you two are talking about! I've heard of the KG8 incident from my papa. But how does that case relate to you, Miss Yu? The victim of that case, CCU, was my little sister. Awkward. Ah, God, it's so fun to think of my dead sister. You're making that super serious face again. I'm fine, really. I just make it a point to rub some more salt in his wounded pride every time I see him. The way she talks about doing that as she laughs is kind of creepy. Speaking of Mr. Bad, he and Mr. Faraday, I'd say they'd met up just about every single time the Yatagarasu made a move. It was practically a given that the two would meet up at every one of the crime scenes. I see. He did mention that he is in charge of the Yatagarasu investigation earlier. Maybe I should ask her what she knows about the Yatagarasu in more detail. Maybe I should. You claim that at the time of the murder you were with Detective Bad. But don't you lawyers usually discuss the trial with your clients during a recess? We do, and that's what I was planning to do. But Mr. Faraday was being rather threatening, and he dragged Mr. Rell away. After that, Mr. Bad came into a lobby number 1, and we just stayed there and talked. And what did you talk with Mr. What did you talk with him about? Nothing interesting. I just insulted him some. Talked about how the trial was going, and then I insulted him some more. Bloody, when she not laughing, her mouth seemingly spews nothing but insults. Anyway, Mr. Bad and I were in defendant lobby number 1 when the murders occurred, so I really can't tell you anything about the hallway or lobby number 2. I see. Something tells me that that's just a big honking lie. I ain't gonna say anything now, but I'm feeling it in my soul. I'd like to ask you a few questions about your client, Mr. Mackerel. Oh, that name. Now, your client first claimed to be the Yatagarasu, is that correct? Yeah. Once I heard that it was the Yatagarasu that had made off with the evidence from KG8, I began to ask Mr. Rell all sorts of questions. But to no avail. Turns out Mr. Rell was not the Yatagarasu. He just made that up. He made it up? Mr. Rell's crime was caught on tape by the security cameras. There's no footage of him sneaking into the Condopian embassy itself. Hold on for just 1 second. Then you mean to say that you knew that he was not the real Yatagarasu? And that he was just another cold-blooded killer? And you were ready to defend him? Yes, that's right. What? I see. So a defense lawyer is actually just someone whose job it is to cover for criminals. Delightful, great. So you're part of the reason why Edgeworth was like that. That's why defense lawyers are so detestable. But they are no match for us fun karmas. I don't believe it. You're serious. Why don't you save that face for something really worth being serious about? And Edgeworth, do you remember what I said earlier? I have my own agenda. I'm still on the hunt for... What's so funny? For leads regarding the KG8 incident, all right? And for that, you have not a single qualm about defending a known killer? Don't put words in my mouth. I said no such thing. Yes, you did. Francesca asked that you were okay defending a killer, and you said yes. We're not putting words in your mouth, you put them in there. We're just showing you what came out. The only way I had to get close to Mr. Rell was to be his lawyer. I had no intention of covering for him, ever, except for the fact that I just said that I would do that. So don't you dare suggest I was going to when I'm going to be the one to do that. I'm sorry, forgive my rashness. Okay, whatever. Monsieur, I was wondering if you could tell me about the Yatagarasu. Yatagarasu, huh? I don't really know much about the character myself, but I do get a lot of consultation requests from companies to defend them. Requests from companies? The Yatagarasu isn't some petty thief out for money, you know. Huh. Alright then, perhaps the Yatagarasu is in the business of stealing people's lives. You're not very funny or witty, are you, little Miss Von Karma? Don't worry, Francisca. She laughs at things that aren't even funny, so she probably doesn't laugh at things that are. Francisca, be careful about who you whip. Choose carefully or we may be sued, but okay. There, I chose carefully, just like you wanted. Oi. Okay, at least that is mildly funny. Yeah, that just now was hilarious, little missy. Of course it was. What is wrong with these two women? Why does my pain give them delight? Ain't that a question for the ages? And, so, in the end, what is the Yatagarasu? I have to say, I'd never even heard of this thief when I was in Germany. The Yatagarasu deals in information. Namely, in digging out dirt about backroom dealings in the likes of companies. The Yatagarasu is a vigilante who steals such info and then makes it public for all to see. Vigilante or not, this person sounds like just another criminal to me. I suppose you could put it that way, too. But either way, I get a lot more clients now thanks to that thief. Sounds like Miss Yu is profiting nicely. I suppose I've gotten all I can out of Miss Yu. I should move on and speak with Detective Gumshoe now. And so we shall, so we shall.